Waking up in the morning on July 17th, still in a haze from the excitement and anticipation for this long-awaited trip, I stepped foot on the bus that would for the next 7 days carry myself and my fellow peers on the expedition of a lifetime. Prior to the trip, during the months building up to this adventure, my friends and I were purely focused on the social and exciting aspects, which did make an appearance, but we'll get to that later. What I personally experienced during these 7 days were Civics-rich environments that engaged me more than a classroom ever could. From the historically rich domains of the Canadian government in Ottawa, to glimpses of our possible futures in Montreal, even when at the tippy top of New York City, there was still always a tie to the exciting world of civics. In this video essay, I will be highlighting our civics journey through the monuments and experiences across the ravishing cities of Ottawa, Montreal, and finally, New York City. Fresh from the ride from Windsor to Ottawa, we were in awe of the grandeur Parliament Hill radiated. Though the site itself is a symbol of Canada as we know it, from the tour I was exposed to what it represents and stands for in a civic sense. What I can say about the legislative process is that it plays a vital role in developing the laws and regulations that govern our society, making it an essential component of Canadian identity and civic involvement. Participating in the legislative process allows citizens to actively participate in decision-making, hold politicians accountable, and strengthen confidence between the government and us as the governed. From the tour, I was exposed to the fact that in one way or another, even in Parliament, every single one of us is represented. Through our representatives, in conclusion, from Parliament Hill, I learned that all citizens of Canada contribute to upholding the values of democracy as well as the legislative process as a whole. The next stop is the Canadian War Museum. This establishment was dedicated to those who fought for this country in hopes of giving us a life of freedom and justice for all. Though we are free to live our lives without the thought of war in our midst, remembrance allows us to pay respects to the sacrifices made for Canada. The Canadian War Museum accomplished that task elegantly, serving as a solemn reminder of our dark history, but in a positive light that allowed us to honor this time in history. The museum offered artifacts and displays of this time, including vehicles used, weapons, uniforms, and more alongside facts that provided a visual of the time. On a personal note, it is worth mentioning that architecture also played a role in this museum, as it was thought out and particular in conveying meaning. In all, by visiting this establishment, I was able to foster a sense of gratitude and respect for those who served and continue to serve, ensuring that their sacrifices are not forgotten. Finally, last in Ottawa, we visited the Crime and Punishment Jail Tour. From this experience, we were able to obtain a first-hand look at the disturbing conditions inmates were subjected to in the old Carleton County Jail. From this experience, topics of justice and rehabilitation were at play, as it truly was a sight that made one think. In general, nowadays, there is more of an emphasis on the rehabilitation of inmates rather than strict punishment, but it does begin the conversation of if justice was served or not. In the criminal justice system, deciphering a balance between the two should be taken into consideration. This jail proved that rehabilitation was not a priority, but rather a place of brutal justice for its inmates' crimes. Just 2 hours away lies Montreal, and in it is the prized Concordia University. From this stop, we are tasked as students to think about our future and if possibly Concordia may be a part of it. Concordia University offers so many resources to its students. In general, universities offer young adults options to explore what they want to pursue in life. It may not be as straightforward as going to a lecture than taking a test. It's more of a formative experience that young adults must navigate. Universities like Concordia give students the responsibility and independence needed to be a sufficient member of society. It's the stepping stone, you can say, to being an adult. Next is an Indigenous workshop at the McCord Museum. Here we were able to be enlightened on Indigenous history, artifacts, and methods and being more aware of Indigenous news and ways of life. Morally, being aware of Indigenous people's contributions in history allows for reconciliation and is a step towards a more empathetic society. As a whole, Indigenous contributions have shaped the cultural, social, and economic fabric of Canada. As the original people of the land, it is our duty to pay respects to that fact alone. A method in doing so is land acknowledgements and perhaps research of current problems facing communities and individuals today. Only by standing together in solidarity can we develop a nation founded on the principles of respect, equality, and justice for everyone. Lastly, when entering the gorgeous place of worship and history that is the Notre Dame Basilica, I was in awe of the glory and majesty of this historic monument. Faith-based establishments like this serve as hubs of worship and community. They bring together people who share a common faith and allow for good works. Establishments, as such, are rooted in values of devotion, empathy, and compassion. Civic values come into play, as this emphasizes on charitable efforts, inspiring its followers to speak up for social justice and advocacy for different causes. The positive efforts of faith-based centers contribute to the betterment of society as a whole. Crossing the border into the glamorous New York City, our first destination is the Edge at Hudson's Yard, a breathtaking view of the city that never sleeps. Overlooking the city, I was in awe of the interconnectedness of New York's urban development. The meticulous placements of buildings that reach the sky were a vision that made me think of the civics that were in play in New York City. The mixed-use development, with pedestrian-friendly streets, parks, and plazas, encourage people to gather, fostering a sense of belonging and community. Residents gather in public areas which provide chances for discussion, cultural interaction, and the celebration of shared identities. At the Edge, I was able to examine all that and more. Another stop on our New York City trip was a tour of Radio City Music Hall, a historic venue of unmatched elegance as Madison Square Gardens. When walking through the grand halls of this venue, I was provided facts about how this establishment has brought people from around the globe together in hopes of witnessing acts of talent and art. This establishment has been around since 1932, hosting events like televised award ceremonies, talent shows, and numerous performances of their home organization, the Rockettes. In general, the arts play a vital role in expressing civic identity in that it reflects history, diversity, and a sense of significance to residents and communities. Lastly, when visiting the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island, this globally renowned symbol became something more than just a woman with a torch who lights up the world. In my mind, learning more about her history, she is a symbol of security, a welcoming hand, and sadly for some a sight that sent them home to imposing danger. On Ellis Island, I was exposed to facts about immigration to the USA, and the daunting challenge that it was and still is. Though the USA is known for its diversity among nations, the process of becoming part of that diversity is a lengthy one. The Statue of Liberty symbolizes freedom and justice, and I learned more so from this experience that all those things are privileges not all are able to bear witness. This experience as a whole opened my eyes to the interconnectedness of the world, not only in historical aspects but socially as well. As we work on becoming a better society today, we must collaborate and ally with others. And though it was not a part of the travel itinerary, I want to mention that I learned a valuable lesson regarding society. I boarded the bus as one, but left with many alongside me. The valuable friendships I made along the way gave me a perspective on civics. Fighting for ourselves and for those we care about is the root of this subject. Rights and laws are made and passed in order to maintain the safety and control of the individuals who have the honor by living by them. This assignment deepened my understanding of what I really took away from these experiences, and from it, I am proud to say I gained a perspective on the society I live in today.